The knock came just after midnight, sharp and desperate, cutting through the quiet house like a warning. He stood frozen in the hallway, heart pounding, his daughter asleep behind a thin bedroom door. Outside, someone was breathing hard, fighting tears, whispering his name as if they already knew him. He had no idea that opening that door would change everything he thought he was protecting. Before we go any further, if stories about ordinary people making extraordinary choices move you even a little, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Teles. Like this video if it pulls at your heart, and share your thoughts in the comments as we go, because stories like this grow stronger when they're shared. He was a single dad in a quiet Ohio suburb, the kind of place where porch lights glowed softly at night and neighbors waved but didn't always know each other's stories. His morning started before sunrise, packing lunches, tying shoelaces, and pretending not to notice the empty chair at the table where his wife used to sit. She'd been gone 3 years now, taken suddenly by an illness that didn't care how young she was or how much their daughter still needed her. Since then, his life had shrunk to careful routines. Work, school drop-offs, grocery runs, bedtime stories. He didn't take risks anymore. He couldn't afford to. Money was tight, but love was not. He worked maintenance at a local hospital, the night shift when he could get it, because it paid a little more. He learned how to fix things instead of replacing them, how to stretch meals, how to smile even when exhaustion pressed down on his shoulders. His daughter trusted him completely. That trust was sacred. Everything he did was about keeping her safe. That night, he had just come off a double shift. His body ached, his eyes burned, and all he wanted was sleep. He checked on his daughter, brushed a hand over her hair, and stood there longer than necessary, listening to her breathe. That was when the knock came. At first, he thought he was imagining it. No one knocked on doors after midnight in that neighborhood. But then it came again, louder this time. He felt a flash of fear, the kind that tightens your chest. His first instinct was to ignore it. Whoever it was could go to another house. But then he heard a voice, low and shaking, asking for help. He crept to the door and looked through the peephole. A young woman stood on his porch, soaked from the rain, her hair plastered to her face. One side of her cheek was swollen and dark, and her arms were wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. She looked back over her shoulder every few seconds, like she expected someone to appear out of the darkness. Every warning bell in his head went off. He had a child in the house. He didn't know this woman. He didn't know what she was running from. He whispered through the door, asking what she wanted. Her voice cracked as she said she just needed somewhere to hide. Just for one night. He hesitated. His hand hovered over the lock. He thought about headlines he'd seen, about worst-case scenarios. He thought about his daughter waking up scared. He almost said no. Almost. Then the woman slid down against the door and started crying, the kind of quiet, broken sobbing that comes when someone is completely out of options. He pictured his wife, imagined her in that kind of desperation, and something inside him shifted. He opened the door. He kept the chain on at first, just enough to talk. The woman explained in pieces, her words tumbling over each other. She'd left a dangerous situation. She'd been followed. She didn't have family nearby. She didn't want money. She just needed the lights off and a door that would stay closed behind her. When she lifted her sleeve to wipe her face, he saw bruises in different shades, old and new. He made a decision that terrified him. He unhooked the chain and let her in. He gave her a towel and dry clothes, ones that were too big, and showed her the couch. He didn't ask many questions. He set clear boundaries, locking his daughter's bedroom door from the outside and sleeping in a chair where he could see both the hallway and the front door. All night, he barely closed his eyes. Sometime before dawn, headlights swept across the front of the house. He stiffened, every muscle tense. A car slowed, then stopped. He held his breath, listening. After a long moment, it drove away. The woman on the couch started shaking, covering her mouth to keep from making a sound. He didn't touch her. He just said softly that she was safe. He hoped it was true. Morning light changed everything. Over coffee, she told him more. She'd been involved with someone who seemed charming at first, then controlling, then violent. When she finally ran, she'd grabbed nothing but her phone, which had died hours earlier. She'd knocked on 3 doors before his. No one answered. He felt a mix of anger and guilt. Anger that someone could hurt her like that. Guilt that he'd almost been another dark house with closed blinds. He let her use his phone to make a call. When she hung up, her shoulders slumped in relief. Someone was coming for her later that day. Until then, she just needed to stay hidden. Around mid-morning, there was a knock at the door. This time, it was the police. His heart dropped into his stomach. 2 officers stood outside, polite but serious, asking if he'd seen a woman matching her description. They said there'd been a report of a disturbance nearby. He told the truth carefully. Yes, someone had come by. She was safe now. He didn't give details he didn't have to. The officers exchanged a look, then nodded. They said they'd be keeping an eye on the area. As they left, one of them quietly said he'd done the right thing. After they were gone, the woman broke down again, this time from relief. She thanked him over and over, like the words weren't enough to carry the weight of what he'd done. He brushed it off, saying anyone would have done the same, though he knew that wasn't true. When her ride arrived, she hugged him, careful and brief, like she didn't want to overstep. She knelt in front of his daughter, who had been watching from the hallway, and thanked her too, even though the little girl hadn't known what was happening. As she left, she turned back and said she would never forget what he'd done. He watched her walk away, hoping she would find a life that felt safe again. Days passed, then weeks. Life went back to routines. But something had shifted in him. He felt a strange mix of fear and pride. He hadn't been reckless. He'd been human. One afternoon at work, his supervisor called him into the office. His stomach clenched, expecting bad news. Instead, a woman was sitting there, looking healthier, steadier. It took him a second to recognize her. She smiled, eyes bright with tears. She told his supervisor what had happened that night. How his kindness had given her the chance to escape and start over. The hospital had a small program recognizing employees who went above and beyond, not just on the job, but as people. They wanted to thank him. He felt embarrassed standing there, hands shoved in his pockets, while they talked about courage and compassion. He didn't feel brave. He'd been scared the whole time. But maybe bravery wasn't about not being afraid. Maybe it was about opening the door anyway. The recognition didn't come with much money, but it came with something else. The hospital connected him with resources, helped him move into a slightly better schedule. Neighbors who heard the story started waving a little more, stopping to talk. His daughter, overhearing bits and pieces, asked him one night if helping people was always scary. He told her yes, sometimes. She thought about that, then said it was still worth it. Months later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from the woman. She had a job now, a small apartment, and plans to go back to school. She wrote about learning to trust again, about nights when she remembered his porch light cutting through the rain. She said that night taught her that not all doors are closed, and not all strangers are dangerous. He folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer with important things. Looking back, he still thought about how easily it could have gone differently. How close he'd come to staying silent in the dark. But he also knew that one choice, made in fear and kindness at the same time, had rippled outward in ways he never could have planned. Kindness doesn't always look grand. Sometimes it looks like a tired single dad unlocking a door when every instinct tells him to keep it shut. Sometimes it looks like offering safety for one night, without knowing the full story or the ending. That night didn't make him a hero. It made him human. And it reminded everyone touched by it that even in our most careful lives, there is room for compassion to step in and change the direction of a story. If this moved you, share it, and tell us about a moment when you chose kindness, even when it felt risky, because those are the stories that light the way for someone else standing in the dark.